live. So we're going to give just a little bit of time for, see if we can get some people to come on here. I want to tell you a little bit about kind of what leads up to going live. We've got to get kids in bed. I actually see one coming out of bed right now. And we're trying to get everyone in bed so that we can kind of have our evenings. And it's kind of this big rush so that, you know, we can kind of stick on a schedule. Hey, Dave, nice to see you again. And so we just kind of, you know, we're running a little late. We had some pizza delivered today. And the guy who brought the pizza had forgotten to bring the little pin if you want to pay with your card, with your PIN card. And he forgot to bring it. And so he was kind of panicked because he was like, hey, Michelle. He was panicked because he was like, if you want to pay with the PIN, I have to go back to my office and I'll probably get in trouble. So we were able to pay him with cash. Luckily we had that. But it was just kind of interesting, that kind of leading up to this. So we rushed the kids into bed so that we could, you know, turn the camera on. Hi, Dave. So today we're talking about perception. And hi, Scott, welcome. Thanks for joining. A wise man once said, there is no reality, only perception. Only your perception of the reality. Was it Yoda? Who was it that said that? If anyone knows, put it in the window. I'm not sure who said it, but I've heard it quite a few times. And it's kind of been a mantra throughout life because everything that happens to us, yeah, and good to see you, Michelle. Everything that happens to us or everything that we experience is really part of our perception. We may experience something different from someone else. So an example is, you know, you can hear the same story of the same event many different times from different people, and you get totally different angles of what happened. You get totally different stories. This was brought to life many years ago for me when I was driving down the highway. And, well, it wasn't a highway, it was a road, it was a double road, but it was pretty fast speeds. And there was this SUV getting ready to pull out, and the person I was driving with was signaling to change lanes. And at that same time, she thought that we in the car were going to change lanes. So that caused her to make certain actions, and she ended up hitting the car. She ended up hitting a car. So we pulled over to kind of give a report, because when you see an accident, you're supposed to pull over to give the report. And I just found it so interesting that in her story, she was talking about how this car was signaling to get out, and it gave her a certain idea, and that's why she hit. And I was in that car that was signaling to turn out. I wasn't the driver, but I was in that car. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting that here we are being a witness to an accident, that she's saying we were the reason the accident happened. And so my perception was completely different than her perception. And we ended up just giving a report and leaving, and no big deal. And unfortunately, she had to deal with the whole thing because she had hit a car. But it was a great teller to me in how perception, you know, it creates our reality. Just yesterday, something happened. Julie, good to see you. Diva Chelsea, good to see you. Thanks for joining, guys. Just yesterday, something happened that's been high on my mind, which is part of the reason that I chose this subject to go unscripted today. And that is, I was going into town to park because I was going to take a train to another place. Hey, Diva. So I was taking the train to a place called Rotterdam, which is about a 40-minute train ride to go meet some friends for lunch. And so I was going to go park the car, and I was meeting my husband. I went to park the car, and I kind of pull up alongside of where he comes out from work. He gets in the car, and I go to park it. And I'm going to pull in to park the car, and I kind of pick out, you know, when you're driving and you kind of pick out your spot that you're going to park in. And as I move toward that spot, my husband says, no, not there. Don't go there. Go over there. And I had this spot completely like, you know, it was the spot I was going to take. And so you kind of envision the spot you're going to take parking, and you're ready for it. And somebody says, no, don't do that. And it threw me off. It just completely threw me off. And so being that I have that disease to please, so like when he says don't do that, then I'm like, oh, okay, well, what is it you want? So that's kind of a challenge that I deal with every day. So I listened to him and I went to go pull in where he was saying, but he wasn't really clear about which spot he was talking about. So I thought he was saying pull into this spot, which is where I ended up pulling in, which is right next to a pole. And he was meaning to pull into this spot. I was focused, Dave. I was focused. And so I pulled into that spot, which put me right next to a pole. And he says, no, 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 not that. And I mean, it was just like my experience, my perception was that he was trying to tell me what to do. I didn't have the freedom to drive the way that I wanted to drive. When I'm in the car and I'm driving, let me drive. That was kind of my defensive mechanism to kind of get at him. And he, which I did not know at the time, he was really just trying to help. So we talked about it later. It kind of caused a rift, which sometimes that happens because his feelings were hurt. I was feeling like he was trying to control my every move. And really he was just trying to help because he saw the pole. He didn't want me to park next to the pole, but my perception was that he was trying to tell me what to do, and don't tell me what to do because I'm going to rebel. So that was later on that night we talked about it and what happened, and he was like, I was just trying to help you. And I was like, well, I viewed that you were trying to control me. And so it was like this complete different scenario for each of us. And had we not communicated about it, it really could have caused a big problem. We really could have stayed focused on it. And so part of the moral of that story is that our perception shapes our experience, but our perception is also influenced by our past experiences and things that things that have happened. So let's see, I wanted to talk a little bit about the feedback that happens between expectation and between perception. So we have a certain expectation, and if that's filled, then our perception is satisfied, or we're validated, or we feel like, the world is in order because our expectations are being met. And we can bring this into customer service or customer solutions or how to make your customers happy, because a lot of us focus in business. I do internet marketing, video marketing, and kind of deal in the online. Hey, Naomi, nice of you to join us. Kind of deal in the online realm. And so I've noticed quite a few things about what makes customers happy. So when we're doing sales videos or we're doing marketing approaches, and you can apply this to your life personally, or you can apply this to business. When you have when there's a certain expectation of what you're going to receive when you deliver a product or when you receive a product, and if that expectation is not met, then automatically the perception is, my expectation wasn't met. Why should I trust you? So it's important when doing sales that we portray an accurate expectation, and that we're clear on the perception of what we're putting across. I've got kids walking in and out of the room. You put kids in bed, you try to get something done, and they're still walking back and forth. It's amazing. Okay, so I also wanted to share a book that I read a couple of years ago. It was called actually it was many years ago, called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. I wanted to say, oh, hi, Shreko. It's a great time you're able to talk about and come to understand each other. Yes, thanks, Dave, for that comment. This title totally rocks. How do I do a thumbs up here? I think there's a thumbs up. You can just click like a like or something, Shreko. Nice of you to join us. We're happy to have you. We're talking about there is no reality. There's only perception. The next thing that I wanted to kind of share about is this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, that I read. And it was a time in my life that I was going through a lot of growth, which seems to be every time in my life. And this book that I read, there was one part in the book that particularly stood out to me. And it was talking about this lady who'd moved into a new neighborhood. And somebody had asked her, she actually went next door, if I can get the story right, but you'll get the point. She went next door to ask, what's the neighborhood like here? Is it welcoming? Is it nice? And the neighbor had said, well, what was your last area like? And she said, oh, the people were not very welcoming. They were not very kind. They were, all about themselves. And I really didn't get to know a lot of people. And the person said, well, I think you'll find that that's how it is here too. And then on the other hand, somebody went to their neighbor and said, what's the neighborhood like here? And the answer was, everybody's kind and really Oh, I've got low battery power. Looks like we need to plug in before we lose some something. So my sweet husband's going to grab something to plug in so I can continue talking. Looks like I might go on low power mode in a minute, but it looks okay for now. Maybe I'll click close on that. And hopefully we get plugged in before we go off. So the second story was, you know, people from my last neighborhood were great. They were really welcoming. They were kind. They wanted to help out. And what happened was, you know, the answer was, well, I think you'll find it's like that here as well. So it's really not the reality of what's happening around us. It's our own perception. And we carry experiences from our past with us into our new perception. I've got this plugged in. Yay, we've plugged in. We're going to get some juice here. That's another funny story about juice. The other day, my husband said, can you grab me some juice? And so I went and poured him a glass of orange juice. And this has happened like more than once, where I've poured him a glass of orange juice and he was talking about juice, about battery power. so kind of funny. So don't sweat the small stuff. And what I learned from that book was that, you know, every experience that we have is part of our perception. As we're creating our reality, we're creating it through our perception. And we can perceive that people around us are nice and great, and the items we buy give great value, or we can perceive that people ignore us and are unkind and unfriendly and unwelcoming. And that all is coming from our perception. I want to talk a little bit about some things that I've learned just recently. As many of you know, Caroline, good to see you. Caroline, I saw in lunch the other day. I've got something flashing on this screen. It's going really light. I'm not sure why. I guess you guys can still hear me. I've got just something flashing on the screen. If you see everything regular, well, if you see any problems, then let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to assume it's happening on my end, probably because we're charging. Make sure that you subscribe to this feed so that you don't miss any of my feeds. You can like, subscribe, share, whatever. Hi, Caroline. Good to see you again. Really enjoyed lunch yesterday and had some great talks about business with Caroline and 3 of my other friends that I actually met at a book writing seminar. And it's amazing. You go to some of those things and you meet these people that you can keep connections with for a long time to come. And so we talked about some great things that I think we'll both be implementing. And she actually has some, oh, Jason, I was going to finish telling you about Caroline, actually has connections in the restaurant business and with chefs and things like that. And I love to talk to her because I came from a background of that as well. And so it kind of puts me back into my, you know, talking to the chef position. Let's see, Jason, to think what you want, oh, this is nice from Jason. To think what you want to think is to think the truth, regardless of appearances, by Wallace Wattles. Wattles, wow, that's nice. This was a good, that is a good thought for this subject, because we can think what we think, and what we think is truth. So very, very good, Jason. Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about some business aspects of what I've learned just over the past couple of days. As many of you know, I do internet marketing, and we come out with products, and we have people who want us to help launch their products, and we do marketing for these products. And so we also find joint venture partners to go in with on these. And there's a product that we have coming out that's called Let Reach 2.0. We're really excited about it. And so I've been talking to some joint venture people who have, you know, lists of people that would probably really, really like this product. And what it is it's notifications. It's basically push notifications for web. So if you're on the internet, and if you don't know what push notifications are, I'll just go through it real quickly. If you're on the internet and you subscribe to push notifications from a certain website, then you can receive those push notifications anytime you're on the internet. This is a great way to send notifications to people who like a certain website. It's a great way to send discount coupons, special offers. There's so much that can be done with these. So I've been talking to some joint venture people and asking, you know, what's kind of finding out what the perception is in the marketplace that we're launching this product, so that I have an idea of what to expect, and, you know, who's going to promote this product, and who's going to be on board with us and all of that. And I got some feedback yesterday that was very, very interesting, and it's caused me to think over the last 24 hours about perception. And that is, the feedback came yesterday. And sometimes when we receive feedback, if it's not what we want to hear, it can kind of be disappointing. And what happened yesterday when I got this feedback is I was disappointed. I was like, gosh, that's really not what I wanted to hear. I'm glad I heard it, but it's not what I wanted to hear. And the feedback was, this person I was talking to had previously promoted for other push notifications and it didn't do well. The product didn't do well at all. Now our product is different, has a lot of different features, and I talked about that with this person, but his whole point was, it doesn't matter if yours is different. There's a perception that push notifications, even people that buy it, they're not going to use it. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't people use it? But I'm getting all of this information about perception from this guy who was so awesome to chat with me about it and talk to me about it. And I got a couple of ideas about what's happening in the marketplace where push notifications has a reputation in certain people's minds. Not everyone's, but maybe certain people have purchased it and have not used it. So why would they purchase another one that they're not going to use? So I go, oh, we have a mindset situation here. This isn't just creating a marketing plan for a certain product that we want to get out to the marketplace. We have a mindset issue that we have to debunk. That's a big job, because mindsets, before people even let information in, their mindset is going to deflect that idea. And so as I spoke with this gentleman about it, and as I've been thinking about it, really what we have is a great opportunity to change a mindset. And what that's going to take is it's going to take educating the general public, the marketplace, the people that we're marketing to, about how to use these push notifications, about not only about what they can be used for, but how they can actually be used, and make it easy enough. And another friend of mine, Shreko, is on here who's helped us greatly, and thank you so much, because he's helping us with, what do we need to do to make it so easy that when people buy this, it's super easy to use. And to me, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty easy to use, but there are things that still need to be added, certain demos that need to be put together. But the first and foremost thing on my mind right now is the fact that that perception has got to change. And that's where we've got to come in and say, okay, let's look at how the perception may have been about this type of product in the past, but let's look at the evolution of how things are changing and how this product is going to actually benefit you. And we're going to show you how to use it. We're going to give you templates to use and all of that. Let's see. He's liking the product. Yay. Hey, Danny. That's awesome. Wave, what is it? Wave, Danny, wave. Yay. That was an awesome juice story, by the way. Thanks, Shreko. Caroline, no worries. We'll talk to you soon. So perception can prevent action. This is another thing that, in our own lives, it can prevent action personally. It can prevent action with business. So if we allow the perception to negatively impact us, it can actually paralyze us. We talked last week about fear and how that can be paralyzing. Perception can also be paralyzing. I remember seeing I took an AP psychology class in high school, it was kind of a college course in high school. And what we talked about, one picture that I remember seeing that's very vivid in my mind is it's like a vase. It's like this picture of a vase. You may have seen it. But depending on how you look at it, it looks like two people looking at each other, or it looks like a vase. So if you look at the inside, it looks like a vase. If you look at the outside, it looks like two people facing each other. And it's a great example of perception and how perception can change our reality. So perception can prevent action. And when we got this little fly buzzing around, when we see that perception can prevent action, then we can know what action we need to take in order that our perception isn't the hindrance to our growth. A lot of times if we perceive something in a certain way, we won't see beyond the perception. Quick little story. Hey, Saul, nice of you to join us. Quick little story. A little girl that I know said to me one day, I heard that all Americans are backstabbers. That Americans will stab you in the back. Like they'll be nice to your face, but then they'll turn around and stab you in the back. And I'm American. And I was like, I haven't seen that to be the case with all Americans, but I know that there are people like that all over the world. But a lot of times if people are saying something about somebody else, it's usually because they might be like that themselves. So it is, again, a perception thing. And especially when dealing with younger generations, it's our responsibility to help them realize that there's perception in everything. let's see, if we allow the perception of our negative experiences of the past to jump in too heavily onto the now, then it may bar us from opportunity. So, especially when dealing with this new challenge that we have of debunking this idea that push notifications is going to be the next, that people will misuse push notifications, or that, you know, people's open rates are low right now. I see that push notifications can be a huge, huge benefit when used in the right way. But if there's a perception that push notifications is going to be the next banner blindness issue, then we've got to change that perception. And that perception changes through talking, getting the word out, having people check out the product, having people test the product, and actually being open to something besides their previous experience. Because the fact of the matter is that life changes and rolls, and it doesn't stay the same. And if you're not keeping up with what's up to date and new, you're going to be left behind. So we're seeing that email open rates are low. We're hearing it from all over the place. You're having to constantly, you know, grow your list. You're having to constantly update things. And with push notifications that people have purchased and aren't using, it gives the concept of push notifications a certain name. And that's something that we've got to kind of get out in the marketplace and say, it's not what you know, be open to something new in this same technology. Dave says, perceptions often change with life experience. So true, Dave. Perceptions do change with life experience. And there's Danny saying hi to Shreko. Love to see interaction on there. David was saying that perceptions change with life experience. So true. It changes actually in a great way. I can think of things, you know, at a certain point in my life, I was perceiving things in a certain way, and now I perceive things completely differently. Sometimes we're allowed to go through experiences that cause us to be more sympathetic or more empathetic, because we've endured certain things that before we had no way to really deal with. We couldn't see anything. And sometimes we tend to be judgmental. When we see things happening from the outside, we might judge the situation. It's kind of human nature. Hey, Anvesh, nice of you to join us. We were just talking about perception and how reality, there is none. It's only perception. And so yeah, our different experiences definitely change our perception. So it's kind of this circle. We have past experiences. We have, you know, coming into our current experience, we have our perception that was actually formed by our past experiences. And then we have our current experiences that is happening in our reality, which is forming our perception as we move forward. So it's kind of the circle: perception, reality, happening now, all of that. Oh, thanks, Anvesh. Yeah. Let's see. So I wanted to talk a little bit about bridging the gap between your between what happens as sometimes our perception can prevent our growth. We have perception here, we have growth here, and we've got to bridge the gap so that our perception doesn't hinder our growth, either personally or professionally. So what we can do to that is we've got to look at the facts. We've got to be able to be open to listen to what the facts are, to try to prevent those perceptions of actually controlling our reality, because we can change that at any moment. We can have a certain experience. There is nothing, Anvesh says, there's nothing called absolute reality. Amen to that, Anvesh. There is nothing called absolute reality, because everybody's reality is different. My experience is different than yours. What does he say? It's all contextual, which depends on perception and history. Yes, that's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about how your perception is formed from your history, and how that perception also forms our current way of viewing things. I was, just before this, I didn't quite have enough time. It's been a busy day, but I wanted to look up some studies about perception. There was something in Stanford that I was trying to get kids in bed and all of that. So if I find that later, then maybe I'll share it with you. Let's see. Okay, so we were talking about bridging the gap between, you know, preventing your growth with your perception, because your perception can either help you or it can hinder you, depending on how you allow it into your life, right? So, for example, when this little gal was saying Americans stab you in the back, Well, that's how generalizations hurt communities. That's how generalizations hurt whole countries. That's how enemies are enemies because of nations and not because of who we are. And so it's seeing beyond those perceptions and saying, okay, somebody had a perception that Americans stab you in the back, but that doesn't mean that has to be your perception. It's certainly not my perception. And so we have to be careful about making judgments based on experiences, isolated incidents, or, you know, lots of stories we might hear on the news. So we're talking about that as well, about how I was sharing with a friend. We had a friend over for dinner yesterday, and I was sharing with her my broadcasting experience and why I'm not in television news. And it's because it's too negative. I don't want to hang out there. The stories that you hear on television news are geared to 12 to 18-year-olds. They're simple, they're factual most of the time, and they're mostly negative. That's the fact of the matter. I was able to intern behind the scenes at a talk show, and what I noticed was that, yeah, there was a lot of backbiting going on. We went to production meetings, and the hosts, there was 3 hosts of the show, the hosts were having these, you know, arguments behind the scene that I was just like, can't we all get along? And I thought, this is where I'm going to be spending a majority of my time with this. And it was very much, you know, you go on camera for a certain way, and then what happens is behind the scenes, you sit there and argue at each other. So my perception was, I don't know that I want to hang out here because it seems like kind of, you know, a negative environment. But I was talking to my stepdaughter about the news and why I don't turn the news on and watch the news every day, and why I'm not working in television news is because I don't want to cover the murders and the suicides and the rapes and all of this negative news, which happens to be what people watch, unfortunately. When I was doing news, I was kind of known as the fluff queen. I was doing fluffy stories like how to buckle your children in safely, and how acidophilus is great for your gut and intestines, and you should eat yogurt. I was actually known as the health reporter, so I was doing health stories. And there was a couple guys who just called me the fluff girl. You know, the girl who reports all the fluff. But to me, it was positive news. And I would much rather report positive news than negative news. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people like to hear what's negative, because then their perception is everybody else's life is worse than mine, so I'm doing okay. So let's see what comments we have. Communication with others is key to understand each other's perceptions. Dave, that's absolutely right. And I want to remind you guys to just subscribe or like. I think there's a subscribe button so that you don't miss any of my broadcasts. I am broadcasting Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's actually late where I'm at. And so, yeah, Dave, I wanted to comment on that. Communicating with others is key to understanding each other's perceptions. This is so true. This is why it's so toxic to listen to comments about a certain community or a certain type of people or a certain nation from the news, because if we don't have our own experience to put into it, it can be quite interesting. I posted a message on Facebook today that was asking, if I say next Friday, and today's Tuesday, and I say next Friday, does that mean Friday the 8th or Friday the 15th? Because I had a situation with a realtor about when to show a property, and he had said the appointment's for next Friday, so I put in my calendar the 15th because I thought that's what he meant. And then I confirmed with him, so the appointment on the 8th has been canceled, or do we have 2 appointments? Because he had said next Friday. And he said, no, actually the appointment, so I said, so is it on the 8th or the 15th or both? Because I wanted to confirm the dates. And he said, no, it's on the 8th. So I went, okay, wait, it was next Friday. Wait, so I posted that because I was like, I wonder what people's perceptions are about what next Friday means. And I got all this feedback. And what's kind of cool is, I think it was Shrego. Somebody had put in there, it was it's different in the US than it is in other places. And that was totally my experience. Like, and had I not confirmed the date, I would have wasted like one of my Fridays, because I would have had to, you know, make sure the house was all perfect and all of that so that it could be shown, when really, you know, it is this Friday and not next Friday. Kind of interesting. Let's see what Shreko says. Here's one. Everything is just an interesting point of view. Very good. Point of view. It is ridiculous to say that push notifications won't be used. Haha. There is use for everything. I have to push see more, Shreko. There is use for every tool. The key is to know where to put a part of the engine to make the engine work. Excellent point, Shreko. Thank you. Yeah, and he did win a fluffy toy because he got the next Friday thing correct. True story. Yes, I knew you were on there. Thanks, Shreko. I'm going to see, we're scrolling down here. In India, it's like coming Friday. Okay, thank you, Anvesh, for your perception input. Because in India, and I have a lot of Indian friends, it's like coming Friday, which means the immediate Friday. Okay, so that would be how it was interpreted here with my friend, the realtor. He was saying next Friday, meaning the next one we're going to come to, which would be the 8th. But to me, it meant something different. Immediate Friday. And next Friday means next week's Friday. Oh, okay. So a little bit difference in the, and also a little bit difference in the wording, but also there's a language barrier because in the language he was speaking, the word may have meant something different than the word next in English. So that's also an interesting point. Bridging the gap. So if we have perception and we have our growth and there's a gap in between, how do we bridge the gap? We bridge the gap with facts, with communication, and with making sure that we don't assume anything. You know the word assume, it's A-S-S-U-M-E, and if you spell it out, it's actually making an ass out of you and me. I love that. So we don't assume, right? Leave nothing to chance. We were talking about this today also online. Leave nothing to chance. If you hear something and you're not quite sure, or if it can be interpreted one way or the other, meaning next or this, the words, check the date. Anvesh, culture and language plays a very vital role when it comes to perception. This is so, so true. I've actually lived in 4 countries now, but I've traveled extensively throughout Asia. And I lived in a Mandarin speaking community and got to kind of take part in their culture in Malaysia. I lived in a Mexican village and got to take part of their culture. And now I'm here in the Netherlands and I'm learning a lot about differences in culture. And I'm originally from America. And I'm from a place in America that's not, it's not the South, it's Utah, it's the old Wild West, right? So the way we do things is completely different the way we do things here. I still sometimes have a hard time with my perception of rain and water because in where I'm from a desert and water is very scarce. And where I'm at right now, there's water everywhere. We live below sea level. So there's water everywhere. And this is completely different. Kids give their, parents give their kids swimming lessons like required here because you might fall into a canal. And I'm going, swimming's like no big deal. Swimming's like, no big deal. But here they're giving them lessons like you go into the water in full clothes in the cold water. And you have to be able to swim in those conditions because if you fall into a canal, and you can kind of talk about how that's fear marketing, but whatever, that's another subject. But if you fall in a canal, you got to be prepared, right? So that's kind of how it's marketed. Let's see what comments we have. For example, let's see. Okay, Dave first says, communication is critical, but not always easy. Amen to that. I completely agree. Communication is not always easy, especially when there's emotions involved, right? So we've got business communication, we've got interpersonal communication, and that's all different. And a lot of times I think for me, business communication is a lot easier. Sometimes if I'm not having a great day and I work with my husband, I got to just stay home and message him because I don't want emotion to get into it. Let's see. Oh, sorry about I want to see what else. Oh, Shreko. For example, I have an interesting point of view that I couldn't talk this good live, straight into the camera. However, I never tried it, so who knows? Shreko, you're right. If we don't try something, we have a perception we might not be good at it. Somebody once said, I'm not an artist. And the next person asked him, well, how do you know? Because they never tried it. So we don't know unless we try something. And I learned a lot about that in my, when I was a single mother, I was trying everything new. Like if it was new, and if you guys have seen Yes Man, what a great movie. Start saying yes to everything. That can go a little overboard, so be careful. Let's see, Anvesh. Do you subconsciously or unknowingly keep the tap open while brushing? Oh, that is an awesome subject. So like with the water, yeah. So I turn the water off, and that's a great question because this is all about perception and where we come from, right? So when I brush my teeth, because water's scarce, because that's where I grew up in the desert where you're like happy when it rains, and you like have droughts and things like that. But when I brush my teeth, I turn the water on, get my toothbrush wet, turn the water off because you don't waste that. And if you've ever lived on a boat or anything like that, you'll know that too. Like you conserve water. And I'm really good at that because, you know, if I go camping and there's a camper with water, yeah, I'm really conservative because I learned to conserve water. My mom would, they moved to a place where they lived on like 100 acres of land and like lived off the land literally. Like the American dream lived off the land. Like they got their water from the rain in Oregon, and then they would irrigate with it, and they would like use it for their house and all of that. And they had this like whole system set up. It was absolutely amazing. But she would like leave the dishwater. I'm like, that's really gross, Mom. She would leave the dishwater and rewash the dishes because she was conserving water to that extent. But yeah, when I see people wasting water, I'm like, why are you doing that? You know, my husband was spraying down. Okay, so in where I'm from in the desert, it's probably next to illegal to like spray in the middle of the summer at high noon when it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit out, which is like 40 degrees Celsius, I think. Is that 40? 40 degrees? 100 degrees? What's 100 degrees? It's about 40 degrees, right? Celsius for those of us who are in the European nations or anywhere else in the world besides the United States. It's like next to illegal to spray your driveway down. You just don't do it because water's scarce, right? We're paying for that stuff. It's precious. I see my husband out here. He's out here with a power washer and he's spraying down like the moss that grows on the ground. And I'm like, why are you using water? and then I remember where I'm at. We're practically drowning in the water every day. Anyhow, great point, Anvesh. Aaron, rubbers don't mean erasers in the U.S. Just saying. You know what? I would expect no less from you, Aaron. Is that how you say your name, Aaron? I hope I'm getting that right. I know it's not Aaron, but because I'm United Statesian, I say it that way. I mean wastewater now compared to what you used to. Yeah, Anvesh, I think I answered your question. I was about to say that too. Yeah, Shreko. When I started paying for my own bills, I close the water every time. I don't really need it. Yeah, it makes a big difference. We're trying to teach our kids the value of, you know, the fact that bills cost money. So we have this printer, right? And we use it for business and other things. And a lot of times most of my work is scripted. And if I do voiceover work, I like to have a printed out sheet. And so I script it and so I like to have the ink so that I can, you know, print that out. Well, my stepdaughter and my stepkids like to print out these pictures that are colored, full color. I mean, you got blue, red, and they're pretty and they're filled in and there's nice paintings. And the other day she went to print out a picture and I was like, honey, you can't print that. Like we're nearly out of ink and I've got some things I've got to print out, right? So some people would say this is living in scarcity, but I think it's just being practical. And so I explained to her that you can't just print every pretty picture you see. Like you need to think, what is a need that I need right now? And you know, there are like 6 people in this house that need ink. And that ink costs us €100 every time I buy ink. Cause it's like, I don't know, I guess they make a killing on that ink. Because I know in America, we got these ink refills that were way cheaper, but here I'm spending $100 every time I put ink in because you've got $20 for each little cartridge, right? So it adds up. So I had to explain that. And I kind of felt like I was being mean because I wasn't allowing her to do something she really liked. But I had to talk to my husband about that. We had to come to an agreement that, you know, you got to be aware of what it's costing. And so thanks, Shreko, for your comment, because when we're responsible for our own bills, we're a little more conscious, right? We're a little more responsible with how we spend our own money than how we spend somebody else's money. It's always easier to go shopping for the designer clothes with mom's money. But when it's my own money that I'm spending, I'm a little more frugal. That's kind of a perception thing as well. Let's see, Aaron, yes, it's Aaron, like baboon. Arun? Like baboon? Hey, Glenn, nice of you to join us. Arun, I hope I got that right. I think I'll get your name right eventually. Some of these names are tough because coming from the States, and I've done a lot of voiceover work for people where I've had to pronounce names and things like that. And it gets kind of tough because, you know, they'll have to do phonetic spelling, and I like require phonetic spelling so that I can get the pronunciation right. But even that can vary because if you have an American accent, then it's like Aaron. And if you speak from certain parts of Europe, it's Aaron. And then if you're from somewhere else, it's going to be Arun, I guess. I don't know. Anyhow, so we're talking about perceptions, and Perceptions and reality, the fact that there is no reality, there's only perception. Communication is key in making sure that your perception doesn't overrun your reality and create something that's not going to serve you. And really, when it comes down to it, the reality, cool, thanks, Arun. I'll keep working on it. The perception, the fact that perception is ever rotating. You know, it's constant. So our perception can change with time and with experience. When I first got here to this country, I had a couple of negative experiences with certain people that really started to form my reality of where I'm at and started creating really a negative reality, and I didn't like it. So I realized consciously what was happening. The fact of the matter is that most of our perception happens at a subconscious level. It doesn't happen when we're aware. It happens when something occurs that causes us to rely on our perception or to make a judgment based on our perception, and then it's already subconscious. It's already below the surface. And so as we become more aware of what's happening in our reality and in our perception, then we can change our perception. So as I started having these bad experiences in this country, and I've lived in 4 different countries, so it's not like I'm new to living internationally. So I'm like, why am I having such a hard time in this location? Well, there's all this perception that's coming from certain sources that I'm letting get to me. So what I did is I consciously, and I still have to work on this. I consciously go, okay, I'm going to expand my experiences here. I'm going to do fun things. I'm going to make new friends. I'm going to travel to another city to go to lunch with some friends I met one time a year ago at a book seminar, because I want my experience to be more well-rounded, so that my perception that I have that was beginning to go negative isn't stuck there. Because we can get stuck in certain perceptions. That's how prejudice forms. I've just recently been talking about prejudice with my kids, and how when you lump any certain people based on their religion or their sexual orientation or their color or the way they believe or whatever, when you lump them, which we all do it because it's part of our perception and it's part of human nature. But we've got to rise above that and be more aware and communicate better and debunk those theories that aren't accurate. They're just not accurate. And if we are willing to communicate and look through those things and really get to know the person, for example, on a personal level, I think we'll see, and I know in my life I've seen that it's not always what I thought. So, hey, Michael James, good of you to join us. I worked with Mike years ago at America Online, a great friend of mine. I love seeing your pictures with you and Amy. You guys are an amazing family, and I'm glad to have you here. We're talking about perception and how reality, there is no reality, there's only perception. And our perception is constantly changing, but it's also dependent upon our past. It's dependent about things that have happened in our past, and we can change that perception and allow perception to help propel us forward as we're open to new ideas and new ways of doing things, or we can allow that perception to hold us captive, really, and stop our growth. So the way to bridge the gap between your perception and your potential growth is through looking at the facts and communicating. We were talking about how perception can be your worst enemy with growth. And how expectations and perception are linked. And that's how in business, your customer service or whether or not you have happy customers, because I do internet marketing, often depends on the expectations of your customers. So set realistic expectations. One thing I want to talk about real quick is in the line of work that I do, a lot of times people are looking for the next shiny object to fix all of their business problems. They want it to get them top ranked in an hour. They want it to be easy. They don't want to have to do anything. And this is kind of, if your product can do that, your product's going to sell. That's a lot of the talk that's out there. And the fact of the matter is if we're selling products based on saying they're going to do that and they don't do that, well, then you've lost rapport, you've lost trust, because now you've said something that you can't deliver, and you set an expectation that's just simply not real. And to come out and say, look, I know your expectation is this, but that's not what this product does. You got to be bold, and you got to be truthful, and you got to tell it how it is. I was just going to talk about expectations and perception. I lost what I was thinking. That's the great thing about going unscripted. With the script, you just, read from the teleprompter, and you do it with voice inflection and movement and all of that. But when it's unscripted, I've got a couple of notes here to remind you what I'm saying. But then Anvesh saves the day and puts a comment so we can talk about what his thing is. Funny thing is, they would spend months, if not years, trying to find instant solutions for their money problems, but wouldn't work towards a proven strategy even a day. Anvesh, thank you for saying that. This has been part of my frustration that I haven't been really vocal about, but it's just kind of something that I've felt from my gut, is that, people do want a quick fix. Don't we all? I was just reading, I was just seeing something online about depression and how, and there's this, I don't remember what it was, but I saw it on Facebook, and it was about depression and the fact that people, when they're depressed, will go to the doctor, and within 5 minutes they're prescribed some type of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. Okay, this is an example. It's not, Anvesh, it's not just in our marketplace. It's in reality, in real life. Not reality, but it's in people's real lives. They go to the doctor because they want a quick fix. Fix me. Give me a pill. Make me feel better. And this website that I saw that's coming up about depression was talking with doctors, health nutritionists, and these people in their different respective fields, and they were saying they had little blips of interviews, and a couple of things that stood out in my mind were, when there's depression, there's something going on in the mind of that individual. When there's depression, it's often related to the health or the gut or what they're putting in their body, the foods they're eating. And I've been looking at a lot of these things. Depression can also deal with hormones. So there's a lot of different factors in depression, and prescribing a pill is actually to give lasting results that can actually be damaging if you're going to just take a pill to try to get rid of this. So sometimes those quick fixes, aren't going to help you at all. They actually can hurt you more. Let's see. So I want to go back to Anvesh's comment. So for people who are looking for an instant solution to their money problems, and they're not willing to work toward a proven strategy, that will ultimately be to their detriment, as I think we've seen in a lot of cases. People will come in, buy a lot of stuff, realize it's not working, try something new, go somewhere else. Where really, when I first came into the internet marketing arena, I got some advice from some people, and one person said, pick something and stick to it and be consistent. And as I've looked at, I just met with an internet marketer friend, a girlfriend of mine the other day, and she was talking about what she does in business and how she gets, she actually develops their websites and things like that, and she gets her clients, and she has to explain to her clients how, you've got to be consistent with your Facebook posts. You've got to be consistent with your ads. You've got to be, she's talking about consistency. And it's having a long-term mindset, right, Anvesh, as opposed to having a short-term quick fix, make me money overnight type of thing. Oftentimes when you hear of people, making a lot in internet marketing over a short period of time, I was reading somewhere, I'm not sure who posted, I wish I could say who it was, but it was after like 6 mails on the same products. They're mailing on these products. If people buy them, they get a commission. And most of this person's success comes after the 6th mail, where a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this myself, will mail, 1 or 2 times, check the conversions if it's not happening, kind of. And you have to really be smart about how you spend your energy and that type of thing. But there's something to be said about consistency and persistence. So there was a story, I used to do oratory, which is a 10-minute memorized speech, and I did it in high school. And one of my topics was persistence. And I started my speech with, there were 2 frogs, and they were hopping along, and and they jumped into a bucket of cream. And one frog, they're both swimming, and one frog just got so tired, he just gave up and he drowned. The frog drowned. And the other frog, he kept swimming and swimming and swimming and swimming. And soon he noticed that the cream was getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And he kept swimming, and before you know it, he's got this bundle of cream around his legs, and he's able to hop up onto the cream and hop out of the bucket. And the frog survived because he persisted. He didn't give up. And a lot of times this is very relevant to internet marketing or any business for that matter. Sometimes when things get hard, we want to give up. And it's pushing through that. And we have a bad day. And it's okay to have a bad day. And then we get up tomorrow and do it again. I went to the doctor once. They ran away. Shreko. You know, I was talking with Shreko earlier online today. And he was, because he's been kind of looking at one of our products we're coming out with or launching soon. And he was mentioning some things, and then he put a picture in there. This is "I'll be back," and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I thought, you know what, you made me smile. Thank you. Anvesh, yep, thing is buying courses upon courses makes them feel good. They feel they have taken some action by buying those products. Sad but true. And it is action, right, Anvesh? It is action to buy a course. But can't we all get caught up in buying more information and more information and more information, and we still don't have enough information, where really what we need to do is take action, right? So I love information. I love to get more and more information. And my perception, my false perception, is that I don't have enough information. This is the hole that I put myself into a lot of times. I don't have enough information to proceed. It can paralyze me. I need more information, but I always need more information. So I can either act with the information that I have and go ahead and do it, or I can, keep seeking more information, right? And so a lot of these people that, are stuck in this addictive pattern of buying course after course after course. And, we see it in life. People have addictions to drugs. They're looking for the next hit. They're looking for the next great big thing. And we all have our challenges, we all have our weaknesses. But yeah, there's a jump from going, because there were years in my life that I was reading courses. I mean, I was going to these live events and buying courses about self-improvement, real estate investing, how to set up your LLC. I mean, all the stuff. And it's like, what I was missing is a great network. I was missing a great team to kind of put it together. Because when we have a great team and we use other people's strengths, then it makes life so much better. I was talking to my husband today about the assembly line, and how I think it was in Think and Grow Rich, the book that I was reading years ago, that just popped into my mind that, when the assembly line came out, it revolutionized business. Because now, rather than doing everything slow, you take one thing that you're really good at and you maximize. And you do that one thing that you're really good at. And that's where teamwork comes into play. And we got completely off the topic of perception, but I think it's relevant, because with perception, a lot of times the perception is, I can't trust anyone. I can't have a team. I got to do it myself. And yeah, a lot of things, if we're building a business, we want to have control over those parts. But when we network and partner up with other people, which we see in the industry that I'm in, we see certain partnerships that fly. And it's because we've got somebody with strengths, and we've got another person with strengths that are lacking in this person, and they come together and make a great team. Let's see. David, great allegory on persistence. Thanks, David. Yeah, so we need to take the time to be open and communicate, and not allow the perceptions that we have from our past to be poisonous to our progress. When we see that it's poisonous to our progress, that's where we go, stop, take a look at what's happening, look below the surface, because what's going on is probably subconscious. It's probably you're on automatic. There was I was in a class once, and we were talking about being on autopilot. And speaking of autopilot, everyone wants things done on autopilot, right? So we go on autopilot a lot of times if we're driving the same route every day. For example, in our cars, if we're driving the same route. And there were times I was working a midnight shift when I was like 18 or 19 years old. I was working actually 2 jobs. I was working at a grocery store, and I was working a midnight shift at a call center. And so I was just work. And I would get off at like 6 in the morning, go home, sleep for a couple hours, and go to my next job, and then come home and sleep, and then go to, it was crazy. And I would drive that route back from work when I was really tired, and I just kind of zone out. This is really dangerous. Just kind of zone out, drive the same route, and have you ever been driving and then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm home. But you were on autopilot. You were getting to your destination. You were aware of what was going on because you were able to function, but really you were operating at a subconscious level. Your actions were coming from a subconscious place. And when it comes to our experiences on an everyday basis, a lot of our reactions and responses come from that subconscious level, depending on what our perception has been. And when we are conscious of that and we're looking at how we're reacting and we're looking at how we're feeling and we're looking at the perception we have about the world around us, then we're living a more aware lifestyle, and we're able to make more conscious decisions. So isn't that where it's at? Being able to make conscious decisions so that we're consciously creating our reality rather than being a victim of our perception. So that's what we've been talking about today. I have been live for quite a while, so I'm going to salute you guys all and say good night. Don't forget to subscribe to this feed so that you can get my other feeds. I am streaming this on my Kimberly de Vries page. I believe it's going on I Am Market News, and it's on my personal page as well. And we're happy to be able to be syndicating that also. So make sure you subscribe and like, share if you like. It's been a pleasure talking with you and having a conversation with you about perception and the fact that there is no reality, there's only perception. Join me on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same time as today, for another topic that will come to me probably about 10 minutes before I go live. So we'll just kind of take the experiences that happen over the next couple of days and see what happens and see what comes to it. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share. And if you have comments, I'm always open to hear your comments. Thanks so much for your participation. The show is so much better when we have audience involvement, and especially for my friends and colleagues. So I wish you all the best. Have a great night, and we'll see you on Thursday, same time. Take care.